I am Marcus James Dixon with Gold Derby, and we are here with Sarah Arthur, costume designer for the Sandman on Netflix. Sarah, this show is adapted from Neil Gaiman's comics, and so I'm wondering, for the costumes, how much inspiration did you take from the source material, and how much was kind of your own imagination?
When we started this project, it was very clear that both Neil Gaiman and Alan Heinberg, the exec producer, wanted to stay as close to the comics as possible. So that was the way we went forward with it. But obviously the comics were written quite a few decades ago. So where we were filming in present day, 2020, we had to update the look to accommodate that. But so by doing so, I stuck with colors that represented the characters from the comics. But yes, so that's how we started the process.
And the series stars Tom Sturridge as Lord Morpheus, the personification of dreams and nightmares. And it blends all these different genres together, period, fantasy, horror. Is this blending something that really attracted you to the project?
It was, yes. I mean, it was a fascinating project from that, for that very reason. I mean, we covered everything from, we started with period, Victorian, up to the present day in one episode. I mean, every episode was multifaceted. We did, as you say, fantasy. We did quite a lot of contemporary, and it was all intermingled in each episode. So it was, yes, it was a huge task, but you know, fantastic from a costume designer's point of view. And I mean, because I designed the helm for Tom. For Morpheus, so that was I mean, it wouldn't be something I would normally have done. It would have normally come from the art department, but I did that, and so that was there was so many different facets to this project. It was fantastic.
The helm is so creepy yet so beautiful at the same time. Can you tell us what it is made out of specifically?
Well, it's supposed to be skin and bone, of course. That's where it's come from. So that's what you know, we looked for to replicate, and came up with fabrics and you know, for the everything was just sort of very natural and organic, and that's how I came up with different textures and artwork and then color sketches, and yes, it was a long process, but yeah.
In episode 6, there is this elongated sequence where the main character reunites with this immortal man every 100 years, beginning in 1389, and so we kind of check in with them as the centuries go by. Was this kind of a dream to work on? Like, you get to go into every, you know, century imaginable as a costume designer?
Yeah, I mean, it was an extremely hard episode. We started, I mean, it's almost 50-50 contemporary and period, and then a little bit of fantasy at the end. So we started in current day 2020, and then we started in 1389, and every 100 years. I mean, we shot it over 2 weeks. It was in the you know, the very peak of the pandemic here, so there were very little costumes able. You know, we were able to go to costume houses, but really cautiously. No shops were open in London, so it was. I was lucky. We did a lot in-house. I've got a huge fabric collection, a huge storage of period and contemporary costumes. And we made, obviously, all the main cast, all the small parts, and we had to make some of the background. But it was, you know, it was the most brilliant challenge. And we all had a great time. It was hard work. But obviously the pain is gone now, and when I look at it, I'm quite proud of what we achieved.
In the first episode, the main character, he's actually completely naked for the first 100 years, where not the first 100 years, but he's held captive for 100 years in this cell. What goes through your mind as the costume designer, someone that's supposed to clothe people? Do you take a day off that day because he's not wearing anything?
Yeah, no. I mean, obviously, there was plenty of other things going on in that episode. So Tom was naked for that whole episode, but obviously we were back in Victorian era London, and we had lots of other people to clothe, and we were working on going forward with him. Those initial episodes were so incredibly important for the rest of the look of Dream, where we were going with him when he was in his empire, when we were with him in London, in modern day, and wherever else. So there were loads of costumes to design for him whilst he wasn't wearing anything.
And the iconic black wardrobe that he has, can you talk specifically about what goes into creating that? And I imagine, this was a Halloween costume for a lot of fans out there.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yes, yes, I'm sure it has been yesterday. But the cloak was really important, and the cut of the cloak and the way, we had numerous, and we sampled lots of different fabrics because the director wanted to pull this cloak through. When he came down in episode 1 and his armor was taken away from him, the cloak needed to go through this tiny little hole. So we sampled lots and lots of different looks. We spread the cloak out, so we did an overhead shot so that it looked like the picture in the comic. And so we did a lot of, we followed the comic extremely closely. Wherever we could, we emulated that. So that's where the black for Dream came from, and his siblings, or some of them. But his going forward, we needed structure, we needed fine lines, he needed to be, this strong, especially as the episodes progressed, and he got all his battle, his helm back, and his ruby and his sand, and he became stronger and stronger. So I tried to create a look that gave him stature and strength going through these episodes.
And we could talk for hours about all the guest stars and all their different garments, but I kind of want to focus on Gwendolyn Christie as Lucifer, the ruler of hell. She starts out by wearing the white, and then she changes to the black leather when they go to battle. What was the inspiration for those looks?
Well, that's slightly more complex. Gwendolyn is married to a very famous fashion designer, and we were in the midst of a pandemic, and he dresses her obviously for many, many different events. So he and I collaborated on looks, and so I can't take credit for those costumes, but I was involved with them, but they were made in his studio, as he's made so many outfits for her.
Are there any guest stars that you're just so proud of by the how the look came off when you watched it on television?
Yeah, I mean, I loved Vivienne, who played Lucienne, and her tale. I mean, that and we made them. There were some fantasy pieces so we made them like the comic, exactly like the comic, where the tails came up. So we incorporated obviously some wires, and I loved doing Cain and Abel. They were great fun, and the colours. Again, we followed the comic. Merv Pumpkinhead, he was a great character. I mean, there were so many. I feel terrible not mentioning all of them. They were, each and every episode had incredible characters and an amazing cast playing these characters. But I think Ferdinand Kingsley playing Hobgadlin in the episode 6, going through all those periods, was sensational in that, as that character.
Yeah, it's something I'd never seen before on television. And is there any news on season 2 of The Sandman that you can tell us?
Not yet. It's it's still, I think, in discussion, but nothing firm yet, as I understand it.
Well, fingers crossed for sure. And thank you, Sarah, for chatting with us.
Thank you.